The Dragon Lord Legacy, Chapter 4, Part 3.
"You're not doing any favors for us either, Spike,"
stated Ember. Spike looked up and saw that Ember and Smolder were both staring at him, like if he was a hunk of meat that was being scrutinized with greed, or, in this case, lust. Amethyst was just staring at him and then staring at the other two before nodding with a grin.
"Things are about to get heated in here, and I ain't talking about lava pits, we all might jump into that later."
Outside the caves, Torch had just finished talking to the two elders. "I had hoped that this would be easier for him," he grumbled lightly. "Clearly, there is much that we are unaware of."
"It's not like his past is fully cloaked,"
stated Elianza, shuffling on her feet.
"I've seen that the ponies have done good, but even they know nothing of his origins. We haven't had dragon hunters missing eggs, or even foul play on the other dragons, reported for half a millennium,"
added Cynthia.
"His age and the description provided to us showed that his egg would be no older than a couple of decades. Anything older, he would be dead or stone."
Torch grumbled in acceptance on that statement. "Then there is clearly something that we are missing. Dragons outside the land still keep in touch during their migration, so nothing has been reported then either." Elianza shook her head.
"Either nothing was reported, or..."
She paused as a disturbing thought came.
"A dragon didn't wish to report it."
This alerted both her mate and Torch, though the former Dragon Lord growled lightly. "Any dragon who abandons their egg
would be dealt with harshly,"
finished Cynthia with venom in her own voice. Elianza didn't like that idea either, but that was the only clear case on Spike's egg. She then gave a quick glance at her cave, hoping the others weren't close enough to hear before speaking low to the others.
"Perhaps we need to pay Equestria a visit and speak to the Alicorns. They may be the ones that hold the key to his past and finally resolve where he comes from."
She lowered her head and shook it lightly.
"It's not fair for him to not know of his past."
She quickly raised it back up and looked at them both.
"But it is not fair that we, as his mothers, are not fully understanding why he is that way. His reactions to my abilities should have been a mere headache when all was said and done, but it went beyond that, and I can't fathom the pain
We put him through, clarified both Torch and Cynthia aggressively and simultaneously. Elianza huffed and briefly smiled in appreciation, before continuing on.
"Well, he has suffered greatly because of us."
"I agree with that," Torch said before sighing loudly. "Though I would love to speak to the Sun Princess again after a few centuries. I'm afraid that Saphira has not fully recovered yet, so I will not join you." Both nodded in understanding.
"You want us to leave so soon?"
asked Cynthia. Torch nodded. "If we're to uncover Spike as well as any other secrets on dragons the Equestrians are hiding, I suggest we find them quickly. Something in my gut tells me we have a little bit of time to get some answers." Cynthia snorted in sympathy.
"That's something telling you that you want to find the answers for Ember's sake as well?"
Torch grumbled in seriousness. "Ember was with us when she screamed in pain, including Saphira." Both females flinched and felt sorrow for the young Dragon Lord, her own mother having to witness her daughter in pain, no sooner than her awakening.
I'm sorry, Torch,"
Elianza apologized.
I had no idea."
"None of us did," he grumbled lightly, huffing once more before motioning towards the cave. "Speak to them, all of them. Tell them that you need to head to Equestria."
"I agree," said Cynthia. "We need to find his origins, his history, and where his parents are." "But he's not ready!"
Elianza bristled with worry.
"He's not even fully recovered his memories, let alone aware of his changes."
"Then be quick with it," stated Torch. "We need him to at least be presentable with the Equestrians."
"What's the worst they can do?"
snorted Cynthia.
"Go to war? We would turn them to ashes, despite their past deeds."
Torch growled at the thought of war, not directly at her. "The Chaos Chimera is on their side now, as well as the Changelings. They have low numbers, but their magic can surpass our own, but in raw power, just with them. The Twisted Freak and the Bugs can target us in many different ways." He then shook his head. "This was all done within the last year. I'd rather not take our chances on angering them." He paused, his mood suddenly lightening a bit. "Besides, despite the issue with Spike, Ember has made allies with them, along with dragons living with them peacefully in towns." Eliantha knew of this, but she never cared for dragons that lived within pony society. They abandoned their roots and forsaken the Call of Dragons when they disbanded from Dragon's Life. Shaking her head, she moved past the topic.
So, how do you suppose that we help our son recover his memory?
Torch gave her an eye. Tell him everything. Leave nothing. Short and simple, but for her, complex and annoying. She growled inwardly, but nonetheless nodded. If you must, use your abilities to help. She was about to retort, but he cut her off before she could. His reaction to your abilities have had effects that could help him further along.
Or it could cause permanent damage and erase his mind altogether,
stated Cynthia. Torch looked at her briefly before focusing back on the smaller dragoness. Do you doubt your abilities? Was simply asked by Torch. Eliantha's tail twitched, the metal band around her tail glowing a vibrant purple. Torch watched it from the edge of his eyes, but focused on her own. She wanted to test his words on him, but she knew that he wouldn't take too kindly to it.
I have no doubts,
she stated coldly.
But my son should not have to suffer if I trigger another relapse on him. I warn that I will do whatever I want to help, regardless of what you may think.
Torch kept a stern gaze on her, not giving her even a hint of emotions. She was intelligent beyond all other elders, but her little gifts made her also dangerous. She was ticking to use them, eager to unleash them on any dragon if need be. But she was not stupid. He snorted when she remained glaring at him, knowing that she wouldn't do anything. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment, or your performance to help Spike. He leaned down at her, matching her glare. We already dealt with this in the past. We don't need another incident again. He growled the last bit. She tried to hold her own, but she was not afraid of him. But she was afraid of losing control. She wilted and stood down. Cynthia, whom was watching, had enough and quickly pushed herself between the two.
Look, we will do what we must,
she quickly answered, trying to ease the tension between her mate and Torch.
But we also know that we can help Spike without needing to use our abilities on him.
Torch leaned back, giving space between the two. He looked down at the now wilted dragoness. Her eyes remained on him, but her gaze was anything but strong.
I will try,
was all she replied. He gave her a stern look before he too eased and lowered his posture. That is all I ask. He then released a breath that he didn't know he was holding. And perhaps we can find a better way to help our hatchlings, for their sake. A soft whine barely audible was heard. I can't stand to hear Ember scream again, nor Saphira to see her daughter in pain again. Cynthia and Eliantha nodded to that, knowing that it was the worst thing to see a hatchling in pain, especially when he could do nothing about it. For the sake of their young, they would do what they must.